Before today's video begins, I just want to say that if you got a little bit of extra time on your hands, I would really appreciate you checking out my two-part review of Doki Doki Literature Club that I recently uploaded. I really do think it's probably one of the best videos I've done for this channel so far, and it's sadly not getting the traction that I wanted it to, so if you can find it in your heart of hearts to give it a view, I would greatly appreciate it. With that said, on with the rest of the video. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I recently did a marathon of Disney Renaissance films, watching through all the Disney films from like the late 80s to the 90s. Started with Little Mermaid, ended with Tarzan, and I decided I wanted to do something related to that. I wanted to do something to kind of celebrate that completion. And I decided what better way to do it than to just do a quick little off-the-cuff video, not really anything fancy, no fancy editing or really writing anything down, just sort of making a little tier list of ranking all the films in this period of Disney's history. I thought that I was going to have to put in at least a minimal amount of effort of actually making my own tier list, but no, of course it already exists, and I had to sort through like 80 different ones before I found out one that I liked enough that I thought I could use it for this video. This one does have its own quirks though. If you've already noticed at the bottom, some of the movies are listed multiple times. Most of them actually are listed like twice, but some of them only get the one. They're also listed out of order, which is a bit annoying since I'm trying to go in chronological order of the film's release. And also one more thing before we get into this video. Some of these films that are listed down here, I did not actually watch as part of the Disney Renaissance-a-thon. I did not see The Great Mouse Detective, and I did not see The Rescuers Down Under. Also, a Goofy movie is not listed in here, even though it was technically released during the Renaissance. It came out in 1995, so... And you might think it's like, oh, well, it's like, that doesn't count. It's like, why? Well, if Rescuers Down Under can be included, then why can't a Goofy movie? They both, you know, meet the same criteria that is being released in the 90s and being theatrically released Disney films. So if Rescuers Down Under is included on here, then I feel like a Goofy movie should also be included. Doesn't matter because I didn't watch either, so I'm kind of being hypocritical by demanding that it be included, while at the same time admitting that I didn't watch it. I'm gonna stop stalling now and just get into the ranking. Let's start with The Little Mermaid. I thought The Little Mermaid was pretty good. Good Movies looks a little bit low down, and really we basically have like 4 positive rankings right here, and then 1 middling one, and then 1 straight up bad one. So this isn't the best laid out. I honestly don't even know why I picked this particular tier list. I'm actually going to move this up to great just for the purposes of it feeling like it more accurately reflects. It looks better on the tier list having it a little higher up, because I did enjoy this movie. I can only imagine how it must have felt to people in like the late 80s seeing it for the first time, because it was really a return. It's just so, it feels weird watching it now, because it's a movie that was like, you know, obviously it's very retro now because it's over 30 years old, but even when it came out it was kind of retro because it was harkening back to movies that had been released, you know, 30 to 40 years before that. So it's like you're watching a movie that's old that's mimicking the style of movies that are even older. Which is interesting, but there are other things to like about the movie. I mean, obviously the music is amazing, not just the songs, which everybody remembers, you know, I don't think I need to remind anybody of how those go, but I mean, also like the score itself. I think the scores to the Disney Renaissance films are often very underappreciated, kind of overlooked aspects of them. They're usually fantastic, and this one is no exception. It's not my favorite Alan Menken score for a Disney movie, but it's still pretty good. I also think that Ariel is a pretty decent lead character. I know some people take issue with her as saying like, oh, she abandoned her family and gave up her mermaid lifestyle for a man. But if you actually watch the movie, that's not really what happens. She's already like fascinated with the human world and human things well before she meets Eric, so really that was just kind of like the was just sort of fuel to the fire of her growing like obsession with the human world. So I don't really buy into that criticism. I think it's kind of silly. Also, the side characters are pretty good. Eric is kind of bland, but you know, that's not enough to ruin the movie. But Sebastian's pretty funny, and even like some of the characters that have really small parts, like that crazy chef that chases Sebastian. He's in like 2 scenes, and he's one of the most memorable characters in the entire movie. And now we got Beauty and the Beast. Now, Beauty and the Beast, I'm gonna be honest here. Because this list, this tier, this ranking is entirely based on personal opinion, I'm actually going to just put Beauty and the Beast as a masterpiece, just as a masterpiece. I mean, it's listed as a masterpiece. I'm going to put it second from the top. But let me make something very clear. If we were to be ranking these movies, you know, with any semblance of objectivity and talking about which film in this canon, well, not canon, they're not really, actually, is that, whatever. I have to get better at talking off script. I'm going to be trailing off a lot. I apologize. I might have to cut some of this stuff out. But anyway, yeah, if you would actually look at Beauty and the Beast as a movie, it's probably the best. Like, I think it's the best. It's like the best written, it's the best told, the best put together, best pacing, probably some of the best animation, if not the very best. I mean, one of the first films. I think people forget that The Little Mermaid also had some CG in it, but this was one of the first ones to like really kind of use it very well. So objectively speaking, it's probably the best of the Disney Renaissance. However, this is based on personal opinion and preference. So for that, I cannot realistically put it as at like the tippity top as my very favorite. But with that said, I still do really like it. Obviously, once again, the songs, what can you say? Everybody knows them, everybody remembers them, everybody loves them. This is one of those movies, it's one of the few Disney movies, or at least Renaissance movies, where I don't think there's like a notably bad or weak song in it. There's no song where it's just like, whatever, we can skip this. They're like all good. And you know, beyond like the song, like I said, it's really just how well paced it is that really like gets me about this movie. Everything plays out so well and is paced so well, and that's like really what you have to hinge the entire movie off of. Everything else is just kind of icing on that cake. But with that said, said icing is very tasty. You know, like I said, I love the songs. All the characters are great, or at least memorable. The romance is believable, and you know what? This movie, the best compliment I can give a movie like this is that I am not like a romance person, not like a huge, I have nothing against it, it's just not a genre I'm very familiar with, like romance fiction, I guess you would call it, nor am I a huge musical fan. So for a movie that is at the end of the day a, you know, musical romance film, to have me saying by the end of it, oh, maybe I should check out more musicals or more romance stories, I feel like it's got to be doing something right. Yeah, this was one of the ones I should have clarified before that I have seen some of these movies previously. Like Little Mermaid I had seen before watching it again. Beauty and the Beast was one that I had not seen ever. So this was my virgin Beauty and the Beast viewing. And I think it's one of my favorites. Not my very favorite, even though it's probably objectively the best, but still very good in my book. Now, I know I just said, hold on, I gotta find it on the tier rating. Where is it? Where is it? Oh my god. Oh my god, I swear if this person forgot to include it. You've gotta be kidding me. This person does not have Aladdin on the tier list. Look at the bottom. Look, what is missing here? What is missing? This person forgot Aladdin. I'm fucking starting over. I'm finding another one. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. We had a little bit of a hiccup with the previous tier list. This person, I use that word very loosely, somehow forgot to include Aladdin in the Disney Renaissance tier list. don't know how that happens, but I'm back. I had to find another one. Embarrassing on my part that I didn't check to see if it included all the movies that I watched, but also very embarrassing on the tier list maker's part for forgetting to include Aladdin somehow. Anyway, with that said, and what's so funny about it is that I was like setting up to say that even though Beauty and the Beast is probably the best Disney Renaissance film, Aladdin is my personal favorite. Spoiler alert, but I pretty much think that the Disney Renaissance peaked with Aladdin. I really liked Aladdin. Again, it was one of the ones that I had seen before. It wasn't my first time. My most recent rewatch was not my first time watching it, unlike with Beauty and the Beast, where I had never seen it prior. With Aladdin, I had seen it 1 or 2 times before, but it had been a long time, and I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. Like, I remember liking it, but I don't remember liking it that much. I really liked Aladdin. I don't quite know why. I don't know what about it I like pushed it over the edge of me liking it so much, even like substantially more than the previous 2 movies. I guess it just kind of fired on all the right cylinders to appeal to me personally. Obviously the main attraction is the genie, and yeah, he's funny. I don't think there are too many people that would contest that. Just the fact that they pretty much just stuck Robin Williams in a recording booth and were just like, hey, all right, go to town, was probably the best decision they could have made. Anything that the writers, no disrespect to them, but anything that they could have written would not have been as funny as the things that he just came up with off the top of his head. But I mean, of course, it's not just the vocal performance, it's also the animation that accompanies it. It's just this perfect storm. Kind of lightning in a bottle. Probably one of the best performances by a celebrity in an animated movie ever, if not the very best. I also just really like Jafar. I think he's a great villain. I love his voice. I love how deep and intimidating he is. Way more... Definitely a little bit more threatening and impactful than that guy from the remake. I also just like Aladdin. Some people don't, and they think he's kind of a weak main character, but I don't really agree with that. I think he really works. Jasmine's great. I find it, although, even though I like Jasmine and all, I do find it interesting that this is the first Disney Renaissance film to not have the princess as the main character. It's not even really, I mean, Aladdin, pretends to be a prince, but I guess he counts as a Disney prince, but I want like clarification on this. Is this the first Disney movie where the prince is the main character instead of the princess? Running it back through my head, thinking about the lineup, I think it might be, but I could be wrong. I don't know, somebody fill me in on whether or not that's the case. But either way, Aladdin the character is great. Jafar is a great villain. The Sultan is an idiot, but he's enjoyably stupid, I guess. Weirdly enough, I think my favorite character in the movie outside of the genie is probably the magic carpet. I just think it's funny. I mean, not the magic carpet itself, although it is pretty funny, but I don't know. I think it's funny. I mean, I like pretty much everybody else in this movie, but it's not every movie you come across that a rug is your favorite character or one of your favorite characters. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but that's because these first few Disney Renaissance films, they have a lot of the same strengths, and there's you can only really go on so long about them before you just kind of start repeating yourself a lot and kind of saying the same things about one movie that you would about another. I don't mean to do that, but it's just the fact that it's just all of these movies, they had very similar, creative teams. They had a lot of the same people working on them, and it really shows because it all comes together and feels so complete. I think that Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin have a lot of synergy between them, which is good. To have 3 movies. I mean, even just look at the posters. It's the same style and everything. Which is interesting how these movies have very little connection with one another from a continuity basis, but they still feel very similar on a stylistic level. And that is where you kind of start to understand why it can get a little bit difficult to really judge properly which one is the best. I know I just said that I think Beauty and the Beast is the best, but Aladdin is my personal favorite. Little Mermaid, you can kind of tell that they were sort of ironing out some of the kinks that maybe Disney was a little rusty to that kind of storytelling, but I think with Aladdin, they pretty much perfected it. I next we got The Lion King, which was the big one when it came out. It remains the highest grossing 2D animated movie of all time, a record that it will probably hold till the end of time because nobody's making 2D animated movies anymore. I think it deserves it. I think it deserves a lot of the acclaim that it's gotten. It is not my personal favorite, but I would still put it at a solid A tier, just because I think, I don't know, man. Again, I really feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's because a lot of these Disney movies, these early Renaissance films, they get so many of these same things right. And, you know, it's easy to just say, it's just like, oh, I loved that movie. It was my favorite when I was a kid, blah, 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 blah. It was part of my childhood. But looking at them, you know, again, you really start to appreciate more how they're just good, like, movies. They're just plain well-made movies, regardless of any nostalgic attachment you might have to them. And The Lion King works very much the same way. I mean, it's like, what more can you say about it? It's The Lion King. You know, we all know the songs. I will say, unlike with Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, this is one where I don't love every song. I mean, I love a lot of them. You know, Be Prepared is good. I honestly like Hakuna Matata. I don't really find it that annoying. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I personally think it's fine. I Just Can't Wait to Be King is very fun. Is just a fun song. I just like listening to it. Circle of Life is probably my favorite song in the entire movie. So maybe blew their wad a little bit too early. I guess that's a small criticism I have, that the music kind of peaked with the opening number. And Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which is the last song in the movie. Honestly, I prefer the Elton John version that was played in the end credits, but the one that's featured in the film itself is fine too. It's also got a great score. It's the first Disney Renaissance film, besides Rescuers Down Under, to not have a score by Alan Menken. Instead, it's Hans Zimmer, and this just makes me wish when Hans Zimmer did like actual orchestral, you know, scores and like themes to his movies. You know, if you listen to music from like this or The Prince of Egypt, it doesn't sound like a Hans Zimmer score. It's not super synth heavy. There's a lot of actual like orchestral stuff going on, and I miss that from him because both The Lion King and Prince of Egypt show that he can do it very well. So I wish that he would go back to that instead of just relying so much on like synths and stuff. But whatever, personal gripe. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about The Lion King. You all know why it's good. It's a classic for a reason. Even though these are like the best, these are kind of the foursome, the fearsome four of the Disney Renaissance in regards to like how well regarded they are. They're the ones that I probably have the least amount to say about them, because it's like everybody's seen them, everybody knows them, everybody knows why they're good and why they're so well regarded, so there just isn't much to talk about. So I'm just going to move on to Pocahontas, which blows. No surprise here, Pocahontas is not a favorite of many, and it is not a favorite of mine. This movie, it just seemed like a dumb idea from the get-go, like to try and tell the story of Pocahontas, which is a very, very real story and a very disturbing and dark story where lots of horrible things happened, and trying to turn that into an animated family film. And you might say, it's like, well, I mean, why not? Maybe this could have been Disney's opportunity to like step it up a little bit and start taking things more seriously. You know, fair enough, except I wouldn't mind so much, except Disney like tricked us into thinking that it was going to take Pocahontas more seriously than it actually did. what we get as a movie is something that looks and sounds like it's going to be darker and harsher and more serious, but it just isn't. It's very kidified, despite, you know, outward appearances. The fact that the entire conflict of the movie just hinges on some bad guy being the cause of everything, and once they take care of him, oh, it's like the conflict is over. No more fighting, no more wars, no anything. It's like, that's all you had to do the entire time. And said bad guy is just a complete joke. He's not threatening whatsoever. He's not even that funny. I kind of get some entertainment value over just how pathetic he is, but that's kind of a backhanded compliment. And all the other characters aren't much better. Pocahontas is passable, I guess, but John Smith is just so goddamn boring. Oh my god, he's so bad. The comic relief isn't funny. The best thing I can say about this movie is that there are parts of it that are unintentionally hilarious. Like, there is it's a little funny how dumb it is sometimes. And I mean, I guess it's not. No. I was trying to defend it, but it didn't work out. Yeah, it's a little funny for how dumb it is sometimes, but that's not really enough to call it like a good or worthwhile or satisfying movie. Weirdly enough, the score to this film, because I feel like I always have to bring that up with these movies, is amazing. That's probably the main redeeming quality I have. This might actually be my favorite Alan Menken score for a Disney movie, which is good and all, and it keeps it from being, you know, bottom tier. But it does make me question why we're wasting such a great score on this crappy story that is just not well told. It's not good characters. It's not well written. It's just bad. I understand it has its fans, but, you know, what movie doesn't? It was just not for me. But you know what? It could have been worse. Not as bad as some people say, but still boring and very underwhelming, very uninvolving. I didn't really care about what was happening, and I think that's probably the worst crime a movie can commit. They just make you not give a shit about anything that's going on, even when you, by all measures, should. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the songs suck. Well, actually, that's a little harsh. Not all the songs are bad. I actually really like the opening song, the Virginia Company, and Steady as the Beating Drum, which plays over the opening credits. Those are probably the two best songs in the movie, which makes it kind of a shame that they're both so short. Savages is kind of fun, but it's weirdly definitely the catchiest song in the movie, but I don't know if that makes it good. Some of the lyrics are pretty, like, on the nose and, you know, just kind of spell out the message of the movie, which I wouldn't know, but something tells me that's not especially good songwriting. Colors of the Wind is supposed to be like the big show-stopping tune that everybody remembers, but I kind of found it to be pretty mid, to be honest. And the other songs just suck. Like Pocahontas' song that she has towards the beginning of the movie, I can't remember what it's called. I just remember not liking it at all. And Mine is just terrible. This was sort of the beginning of the end for the Disney Renaissance. They had peaked with Aladdin and the Lion King, and then it was just all downhill from there. But before that could happen, we got The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is a great movie that I like quite a bit. Do I put it ahead of Beauty and the Beast? I'll put it just behind Beauty and the Beast, but ahead of The Lion King, which is not to say that it's a better movie than The Lion King, because it definitely is not. Lion King is a better film. It's more consistent. It's more well put together. It's more of a flowing story. Hunchback of Notre Dame is kind of all over the place, and it's got some really questionable aspects to it, like the gargoyles, which almost everybody hates, but weirdly enough, people act like all three gargoyles are like annoying, and let me clarify that. Only two of the gargoyles are annoying. The other gargoyle, the like tall, the other guy one, the guy who's not voiced, the male gargoyle who's not voiced by Jason Alexander, he was okay actually, but said Jason Alexander gargoyle is annoying as hell, and the female gargoyle is almost as bad, if not worse, yet nobody talks about her, which is that's a sick injustice. Come on, we have to if we're gonna call it the gargoyles, and we have to like be fair here and you know, clarify which ones are really annoying and which ones aren't. It wouldn't be so bad if they weren't actually real in the movie. If they were just a figment of Quasimodo's imagination, you could kind of get away with that. Oh, and also, if you didn't give them that god-awful song, which is the worst song in the movie, by a fair margin, those would have done wonders for making the gargoyles just the tiniest bit more tolerable. But no, you just couldn't do that, could you? And they just have dumb things, like them adding the goofy yell during the climax. It's like, what was the point of that? It's a very uneven movie overall. It's so tonally inconsistent. But with that said, the things that it gets right, it gets really, really, really right. I said that Pocahontas was had my favorite Alan Menken score to a Disney movie. This one might give it, Hunchback might give it a run for its money. And on top of that, the songs are actually good, except for the Gargoyle song. Everybody talks about Hellfire and Bells of Notre Dame, and those are great. But I want to give a special mention to some of the lesser talked about songs in the movie, both of which are sung by Quasimodo, oddly enough, that are Out There and Heaven's, it's called Heaven's Light, I believe. Those are really good. I wish Heaven's Light was a little bit longer, but I like that it feeds nicely into Hellfire, kind of showing Quasimodo and Frollo's contrasting views of Esmeralda. It's also just a good song. It was nice to listen to. I really like Out There. Probably the best Disney I Want song of them all, if we're being honest. Quasimodo truly is the lost Disney princess. And then everything, like, again, the rest of the music, including the score, is just so good. And then beyond that, I really like the animation. It's got some odd bits of like the weird CG crowds that do not look very good, but they're, you know, in the background and obscured enough, and you're focused on what's happening in the foreground that you probably might not notice. And some of the use of CGI in this movie is actually really, really impressive and definitely holds up, especially considering that it's over 25 years old. Frollo, everybody's talked about this guy to death. We all know he's a great villain. He's just such a bastard, probably one of the most evil Disney villains of them all. But at the same time, he's very realistically evil. You know, he's kind of I kind of put him in the same category as like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Both of them they don't have superpowers. They're not, you know, an evil, they're not like an evil sorcerer like Jafar or a witch like Ursula. They're just guys. Really, really, really bad guys. So I put those in the same category. But I like Frollo a little bit more because he's taken a lot more seriously than Gaston. Gaston was just kind of a clown through most of that movie, but Frollo, he's treated with much more of a level of seriousness, and I think that goes a long way in actually making him more intimidating, despite being a frail old man with really nothing more than just, well, power and authority. I like most of the other characters aside from the gargoyles. I really like Esmeralda. Quasimodo's obviously good. Not a huge fan of Phoebus. He's kind of bland, but I guess he works well for what his role is supposed to be. Not a fan of the comic relief goat. There's really just the comedy in this movie that's kind of off. Think a lot of the other Disney movies, even the more serious ones, had better comedy than this one. But the serious moments are exquisite. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. I have a feeling I'm being pretty uncontroversial with my opinions thus far. I don't know a ton of people that are going to take all that much issue with these, but allow me to fix that with my opinion on Hercules. Oh boy, I am not going to make any friends with this one. Alright, sorry to everybody who really likes this movie and considers it one of their favorite Disney movies. I understand that this movie is getting a much bigger following. A lot of people list it as one of their very favorites. And, you know, I watched it as a kid and I remember liking it. So this is one of the ones that I watched this a lot as a kid. This was probably the one that I watched the most when I was like really young. So I was excited to watch it again and to see how it held up. And let's rip the Band-Aid off. I fucking hate this movie. It is my least favorite Disney Renaissance film by a comfortable margin. Pocahontas is more boring than Hercules, but Hercules commits a much greater sin in my eyes. Hercules is annoying. I just found this movie obnoxious. Like, everything about it, it just felt like the people making it didn't care. It just felt like they didn't care about the movie they were making. And I don't know if that's true. I have a feeling it's not. I'm sure lots of work and effort and time did go into this movie, as they do for all of these Disney movies. Which just makes it more of a shame when none of that really comes across in the movie itself, because Hercules, as a movie, just feels like it doesn't care about the story it's telling. It tries to be this complete farce, this like piss take on Greek mythology, and if you want to do that, then fine, but you have to stick to it. You have to be consistent. But Hercules is the opposite of consistent. It is so all over the place. It's such a mess. It just doesn't know what it wants to be. And unlike The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where the redeeming qualities are so good that you can kind of forgive the fact that, yeah, from like a storytelling perspective, it's kind of a mess and kind of all over the place, Hercules doesn't have that going for it. I don't like the characters in this movie. Hades is the one exception. He's easily the best part of the movie. Obviously, everybody likes Hades. Even people that don't like the movie, myself included, still cite Hades as being the best part of it. And yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that. But everybody else is either like bland or annoying. Ugh. The comic relief demons that follow Hades around are just awful. Fucking Hercules himself is just an uncharismatic idiot. Danny DeVito Satyr, there's not much to say. I mean, you know, you'd expect that with it being Danny DeVito, he'd be at least slightly entertaining, but there's just nothing to say about him. And then Megara is just... I mean, her character is passable, I suppose, but... referencing her character in any capacity just makes me think of that god-awful song that I hate. I also just don't like the music in this movie. I love the score. It's another really good Alan Menken score, but the songs I did not care for at all. The only good one, in my opinion, is Zero to Hero. Zero to Hero is a good song, and I wish that its accompanying numbers were a lot better. But as is Zero to Hero, it's the only song that I even remember. Most of the others I just completely forgot about. Except for Meg's song, which was just so terrible that how could I possibly forget how just annoying it was? I feel bad bashing this movie, because again, I know it has its fans, and I want to like be empathetic towards that. And I want to understand what it is that people like about this movie, but I just cannot see the appeal whatsoever. I was excited to watch this movie again, okay? I was excited to see how well it would hold up from watching it so many times as a little kid. It was like the only Disney Renaissance film that I actually consistently watched a lot when I was younger. So maybe my expectations were just too high, but I was really disappointed. It is not a favorite of mine. With that, but strangely enough, even though it is my least favorite Disney Renaissance film, it's probably the only one of this whole selection that I actually want to go back and watch again. Because I disliked watching it so much that I actually wonder if my if my first impression of it, well, first impression after not having seen it in several years, was like a fluke. Because I just cannot, I cannot believe that I disliked it as much as I did. I feel like there's got to be something wrong. Maybe I was just in like a bad mood that day when I watched it. Because I cannot fathom how much I just did not enjoy this movie. But there you go, Hercules, my least favorite Disney Renaissance film. I am so sorry. So I've lost all you Hercules fans, which is unfortunate. I'm very sad. but hopefully I can win over some of you Mulan fans, because Mulan is probably my second favorite Disney Renaissance film. I would put it just behind Aladdin. They're like very close in quality. I loved Mulan. I just loved Mulan. I kind of like Hercules, but in reverse. I was not expecting to. Mulan I had seen before, so watching it again, I was really taken aback by how much I enjoyed it. I just loved it. I mean, I really did. And like, you know, I'd heard good things about it. I always got the impression that Mulan was a reasonably well-liked movie in the Disney pantheon. But man, is it weird to say that after watching it this most recent time, I actually think it's kind of underrated? Which is funny saying that, because it seems like everybody likes Mulan. I can't think of too many people who are just like, Mulan, that one sucks, I hate that one. But everybody likes Mulan, but I don't know how many people who actually love it. But I just loved it. I really, really liked Mulan. I liked everything about it. I mean, the songs were amazing. Everybody knows I'll Make a Man Out of You, but all the other songs I thought were really good. I think that they deserve more attention. I love the score for the movie. It is another non-Alan Menken Disney score, but probably the best in that category. But what do you expect, Jerry Goldsmith? He's one of my favorite composers of film scores ever, and he definitely brought his A game to this movie. I just love the main motif he has for Mulan. And Mulan as a character I really like, because she was kind of she's the best version of like a Disney every man or every woman type character. But they don't make her too bland. They don't just make her like, you know, you get the setup that she's like this regular person with no real special talents who has to learn to become a hero over the course of the story. But they don't just make her this like blank slate that the audience can easily project themselves. I just bought my microphone that the audience can easily project themselves onto. She has a personality. It's not a perfect movie. Mushu kind of feels unfitting. He feels out of place in a movie like this. I don't find him annoying, but I just don't really know if he like fits with the kind of tone the movie is trying to create. And I do think there is a little bit of, I don't know what it was about these like mid to late 90s Disney movies that they just had a problem with like tone whiplash, but Mulan definitely has some kind of tone whiplash going on where it's very much kind of can't decide what it wants to be. Is it like trying to be more serious, or is it trying to be more comedic? But honestly, like with Hunchback of Notre Dame, I don't care. The movie is just so involving and so engrossing and so fun. You know, it just flew by when I watched it. I barely even noticed the length. And I mean, obviously it's not an especially long movie. None of these Disney movies are, except for Hercules, which is like an hour and 40 minutes. Why is that the longest Disney Renaissance movie? I keep on just finding other things I dislike about that movie. But whatever, we've already moved on to that. We've already moved on to Mulan, which is not long, but it felt even shorter than it really was. I just loved it. I really liked Mulan. Might do a review of it someday, just to get my personal thoughts about it. So I feel like even though Aladdin is my favorite Disney Renaissance movie and Beauty and the Beast is the best, Mulan is the one from this collection that I feel the most passionate towards. It's the one that I just like get like energized by talking about it, and that's what might motivate me to make a proper full-length dissection of it one day. Let me know if you want to see that. And finally, not counting The Emperor's New Groove, which is included in this ranking for some reason, even though that's not Disney Renaissance, it's post-Renaissance, but whatever. Or Rescuers Down Under, which I didn't watch. The last Disney Renaissance film in this ranking, it's Tarzan. I put it at B. Just behind The Little Mermaid. Tarzan is pretty good. Tarzan is pretty good. Not as good as Mulan. Not as bad as Hercules. It's kind of middling, to be honest. And I almost wonder if it serves as a bit of an anticlimax to the whole Disney Renaissance. You know, something that started off so strong and then kind of had its ups and downs. We sort of finished with a movie that's just kind of in between all of that, you know? And I mean, it's not to say it's bad, it's good, but I feel like this feel if we were going to send this series out, we could have either had ended off with a gloriously bad movie or, you know, obviously just a really good one. But Tarzan isn't really either. It's just good. There's not really much more for me to say about it. I do not like the Phil Collins song. Well, I like the Phil Collins songs themselves, but I do not like how they're used in the movie. It just feels like I just kept on thinking through the entire runtime why they didn't just make this movie a musical rather than just having Phil Collins randomly sing in parts where like a musical number should have happened, or just not make it a musical but, you know, scrap the Phil Collins songs. The only one that works for me is Strangers Like Me, because that's playing during a montage where you would like expect a song, a diegetic song to be played. So that one makes sense, but all the other ones that just don't really fit, and they're like so on the nose. They're basically just explaining what's happening as it's happening, which is just not really for me. Oh, I forgot Son of Man. I think that's what it's called, but that's another montage song, so it works there. But let's see, what else do I like about this movie? I mean, Tarzan and Jane and the connection that they have is not, you know, it's not like the most complex thing in the world, but I think it works well enough. I like Jane as a character just because she's very much like, I mean, she's not like what you would consider a strong, liberated woman, but she's not like obnoxious. She has her role in the story, and she can, you know, be a valuable part of the story and the experience, and, you know, really add a lot to the other characters, especially Tarzan's journey, without having to be super like physically adept, which is nice, because not every character has to be an action hero in order to be a well done character or an interesting character, or a likable character. So yeah, I really liked Jane in this movie. Clayton is kind of this movie's attempt. I think he's an improvement over Ratcliffe from Pocahontas. I kind of put those two villains in the same category in that they're not really super powered, but they're also not like, you know, they're just greedy assholes. But as far as greedy asshole villains go, I think Clayton is an improvement over Ratcliffe. But I also think that same concept of villain would be further improved upon in Atlantis with Rourke, which is not included in this ranking, so I'm not going to be talking about it here. But yeah, overall Tarzan, is there anything else I can say about it? I'm not a huge fan of the Rosie O'Donnell gorilla, gotta be honest, but it's a minor nitpick, I suppose. I really like the music. Outside of the Phil Collins songs, I like the score for this movie. I mean, if you couldn't tell by this point, I think that most of the Disney Renaissance films have pretty good scores. This one isn't my favorite, but it's still pretty good. I love the animation. I think this probably is some of the best animation of the Disney Renaissance. I just love, there's so much CGI in this movie, but it all fits so well. It never feels like, it just looks right. Like, there's only so much I can say about it, but I really do love how this movie looks. And I love how it sounds. I love the sound design. It's just, it's a good movie. It's just not my favorite. It's not my favorite story. It's not my favorite characters. It's got some really good stuff in it, though. It's got one of the best villain deaths in the entire movie. Even people who don't really like Clayton as a villain, at least acknowledge that his death is very memorable. And a lot of the deaths are very memorable, and there are a lot of deaths in this movie. I mean, the baby gorilla gets torn apart as its parents listen to its dying screams. The leopard that kills it gets killed. Kerchak dies, he gets straight up shot, which makes this the second Disney movie in the Disney Renaissance where a character just straight up gets shot and dies. Except I think Kerchak's death was handled a lot better than whatever the hell that guy's name in Pocahontas was when he died. I mean, Kerchak is kind of one of the weaker elements of Tarzan anyway, but yeah, there you go. This is like the one thing I can say about Tarzan is that pretty much everything that it does kind of wrong, I can at least say Pocahontas probably did it worse. So you know, glowing endorsement, I know, but that's just how I feel. Oh boy, so that was the entire Disney Renaissance. Whatever, however many movies are ranked, not counting The Rescuers Down Under. You know what? I'll put it in C tier. There wasn't a movie in C tier, so I decided I might as well put it there. And as for Emperor's New Groove, I'm putting that in A tier, baby. That movie's a classic. Haven't seen it in a while, but I'm sure I would love it just as much as I did back then because it worked so well with Hercules. Oh boy, yeah, let me know. I think this list was pretty uncontroversial, except for with a few notable exceptions, if you know what I'm saying. But let me know what you thought of it. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. I would certainly like to make more just because this was really easy to make. I literally just sat down and talked for an hour and I now have a finished video pretty much. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say here other than thank you for watching, have a great day, and until next time, see ya.